Hello, and welcome back to the Misty Morrison podcast. I'm your host, the wonderful Misty Morrison, and today is episode 10 of Was I in the Wrong? Let's get into the stories. Story number 1 is coming to us from r/Would I Be the A-hole? Would I be the asshole for kicking my boyfriend's bestie out? I, 26 female, and my boyfriend, 27 male, have been dating for a year now. We both decided in the beginning of our relationship that we would ideally like to move in together around the 1.5 to 2 year mark. I live in a townhouse that I rent in the city super close to where he works. My lease ends in September. He owns a small 3-bedroom house outside the city, about 45 minutes to an hour away with traffic. He stays at my house on the days that he works so that he doesn't have a long commute in the mornings. He gets off really late at night. Last October, his best friend from college, 27 male, really needed a new job and change of lifestyle. He had been supporting his mom and living on a super low income in a town about 2 hours away from our city. I told my boyfriend I could assist in getting him a job where both me and my boyfriend work, so I did. The job more than doubled his last salary and gave him the opportunity to pay off a lot of his debt. My boyfriend allowed him to rent a room in his house with no lease agreement under the condition that he pays a flat $600 a month, no utilities. There was never a discussion of when the arrangement would end. I had never met his friend before he got the job and moved into my boyfriend's house. He is overall a nice guy and easy to get along with. He's a very kind individual. However, there were some red flags that have come up since. On the day that he moved in, his brand new girlfriend of less than 2 weeks was in my boyfriend's house. He gave her the code to the house so she comes and goes as she pleases. She doesn't have her own place. She lives with her parents, so anytime they want to see each other, it is always at my boyfriend's house. She will come into the house with bags of groceries and brings literal suitcases when she intends on spending the night. Fast forward to now, I rarely go to my boyfriend's house anymore because anytime I'm there, his best friend and girlfriend are there too. She stays over there about 3 to 4 days a week. His rent doesn't cover even half of the mortgage, although he and her are both showering, doing laundry, and cooking there all the time. She also shows up to my boyfriend's house while his best friend isn't even there. She will let herself in and sit there for hours until he gets home. In addition to those issues, his best friend has made himself wildly comfortable in my boyfriend's house. He is not only taking over the room he's paying for, but also the spare bedroom by putting his desk and computer in there to make it a gaming room. After his best friend had been there for a couple of months, I told my boyfriend to set boundaries, which he failed to do, which is part of the reason we are in this situation now. My boyfriend and I recently had the conversation of what we were going to do when my lease ends in September. His best friend will be living there for about a year by then. My boyfriend presented 3 options. We live in his house, 45 minutes, an hour from my job. We get an apartment together. I buy a house, and we live there. He said we were both able to veto an option. I vetoed buying a house because the city we live in is astronomically priced, and I don't want to take on that much responsibility by myself. He vetoed renting an apartment because he thinks renting is a waste of money and he already has his mortgage. That left the one option of living in his house, which I would be okay with under the condition that his best friend/roommate moves out. My reasons being, wanting to see how we cohabitate without external influences. The house is small and space for my stuff and all my boyfriend's stuff is already limited. He and his best friend play video games together whenever I'm at his house while I'm sitting in his room doing nothing. His best friend's girlfriend is there all the time, and I wouldn't want someone else's visitor in my home constantly. It is simply just uncomfortable being a female and living with another male that is not your partner. There is no end in sight when he is charging him $500 less than what a cheap 1-bedroom apartment goes for in the area. His bestie can afford to move out of the house. He spent his tax return on a new gaming PC instead of paying off his debt. After giving him these reasons, he is refusing to ask his best friend to move out, saying, I can't kick him out. If he let him know now, it would be more than enough time for him to find a new living situation by the time my lease ends in September. He has asked me to compile a list of things to discuss with his best friend to see if there is even a chance that we would be able to do a trial run and see how it works out. I simply just do not want to live there with his best friend. I told him firmly that I refuse to live with his best friend. I told my boyfriend that if we don't live together when my lease ends, there's really no point in continuing the relationship because it will not be progressing if we live separately. He says he is helping his friend and he can live there for as long as he chooses to. He is now upset with me and feels like I'm giving him an ultimatum of making him choose between me and his best friend. There are a lot more details to the situation, but I will spare you. Am I the asshole? No, OP. I think... I'm not going to say you're right, but I'm going to call this one a mess. For a few reasons. In the end, you did give him an ultimatum. It's basically, I refuse to live with the best friend as a roommate. The best friend has to move out. If he doesn't, I'm not moving in and our relationship is done. Is basically what you said. And like, that's fair. You can decide that for yourself. But that is an ultimatum. I really don't see how you can fix the situation because it's not yours to fix. And clearly he doesn't care enough about your relationship remaining and moving forward to fix it himself. He chose not to set boundaries. He chose not to put an end date on it. He's saying he doesn't care if the friend stays. The friend can stay as long as he wants to. He is okay with the current situation. And it's his situation. You can't force him to change it. So, I mean, it sucks. Like, if this is the one roadblock in your relationship, it sucks that this is what it's coming to. But from the what I gather from the end of your post, where he says I can't kick him out, and he says he's helping his friend and he can live there for as long as he chooses to, he already chose the friend over you. Like, you gave him your reasons. You said you are not comfortable with it. And, like, your comfort in the situation should have been a priority over the friend, especially when, one, the friend would get plenty of notice to be able to find a new place, and the friend does make enough to afford another place. He might not pay off his debt as fast, but, I mean, if he's using his tax return to buy a PC instead of paying off the debt, that's not his top priority anyway. Yeah. This is a mess, and yeah, I'm sorry that you're stuck here right now. I hope we get an update later, but I will link it down below and you guys can check it out. Story number 2 is coming to us from r/Am I Overreacting? Am I overreacting after I won $50,000 and didn't help my sister with her $20,000 surgery? Throwaway for obvious reasons. Hit a crazy streak gambling last month. Walked away with $50,000 after taxes. My sister found out through a mutual friend and immediately called asking for help with her $20,000 surgery. Here's the thing. Growing up, she stole from me for years. Not just small stuff, but actively took my things and lied about it. He doesn't need it anyway, or you shouldn't be so materialistic, were her go-to lines. She was 7 years older, an adult, and could have respected my property, but nope. We've had exactly one conversation about it as adults, where she basically said that's just how things were back then, and changed the subject. So when she called about needing surgery money, I told her congratulations on her GoFundMe reaching $500. I've learned I don't owe people who hurt me a darn thing, even family, especially family. My money is going into investments and a vacation somewhere with excellent cocktails and zero family drama. Am I overreacting? My friends say I'm being cruel. No, OP. No. You are not overreacting. You are right. And I mean, you don't even owe her a reason for why you're saying no, because she is not entitled to your money regardless of how she treated you as a child. It is yours to do what you want with. Yeah, you're right. You don't owe it to her. It's really just that simple. Like, we could go into more detail, say, oh, well, you know, she doesn't deserve it because she treated you badly as a kid. And yeah, that's important. But you don't owe her an explanation. You don't owe her an apology. You don't owe her your money. So good for you for like right off the bat saying no and doing what you want to do with what's yours. And there's probably some people who really care about what the surgery is for. I don't. It doesn't make a difference to me. Her life is not your responsibility. And good for you for having those firm boundaries. Story number 3 is a tale as old as time. It is coming to us from r/AITA_WIBTA_public. AITA for refusing to take my husband's last name. First 2 stories, I forgot my initial reaction. So here's my initial reaction based on the title for story number 3. No, you are not the a-hole. You are not wrong. But let's read the details and see if they can change my mind. I've always been proud of my name. It's part of who I am, tied to my identity, my family, my achievements. When I got married, I made it clear from the start I wasn't changing it. My husband knew this before we even got engaged. He never made a big deal about it at the time, so I assumed we were on the same page. But once the wedding was over, things shifted. It started small, him introducing me as Mrs. Jenkins, even though I never agreed to it. When I corrected him, he'd brush it off. It's just a name. Does it really matter? His family chimed in too. His mom sent holiday cards addressed to Mr. and Mrs. Jenkins. His aunt made a comment about how I wasn't really committed to the marriage if I couldn't even take his name. I stood my ground. I love you, but my name is my name. He didn't see it that way. Marriage is about unity, he argued. Why wouldn't you want to share a name if we're building a life together? It escalated into full-blown arguments. He accused me of not respecting tradition, of caring more about my pride than our relationship. I reminded him that my love and commitment weren't tied to a legal name change. If you really love me, he said one night, you'd want to take my name. And that's when I knew. He wasn't hearing me. He wasn't accepting that this was a fundamental difference. He saw my refusal as rejection, and I saw his insistence as control. I wasn't changing. Neither was he. So I made my choice. I loved him, but I loved myself enough to stand firm. AITA for refusing to take his last name. No, OP. No, you are so right. And what I really, really dislike about the husband in this story is that he was aware the entire time of what she wanted and what she was not willing to do. She was not willing to take his name. She never was, and she was upfront about that from the beginning. And the fact that he was like chill about it until they got married and then afterwards started pushing it on her, his goal the whole time was to change you. Like you said, he was trying to control you. He did not care what you wanted. He did not care what you thought. He's like, I'll get her all wrapped up in a marriage and then I'll make her take my name. So I'm really proud of you for not budging, for realizing what was going on, and for being willing to stand on it. Yeah, I really appreciate that you acknowledged that it was a fundamental difference and neither one of you was going to change. Because I think that's a big thing in relationships. Like, some people change, some people don't. Some people just naturally change as they grow, and some people are pretty firm in their beliefs and everything pretty early on. And expecting someone to change down the line, it's always a recipe for disaster. Or expecting someone not to change as they grow is also a recipe for disaster. So I'm proud of you for standing your ground on that. Yeah, OP is right. Story number 4 is coming to us from r/AITAH. AITA for ignoring my wife for throwing away my late wife's videotapes. This is a bad one. Initial reaction, no, you're not the asshole. But let's read on. I am writing this because I don't know what to do. I have a daughter with my late wife, and her name is Eleanor. Her birthday is coming up in 2 weeks, and she's turning 18. Background: me and my late wife, Chloe, had been dating since college. We got older and ended up getting married. And after our wedding, she shared news to me that she was pregnant, and I was excited that we were expecting our first child. Since it was our first child, we bought a video camera and made little tapes and snippets of our whole pregnancy. Wholesome things such as us joking around or having lunch or talking to our unborn child through the camera. We made a promise to only show Eleanor the tapes on her 18th birthday. Fast forward 2 years after her birth, Chloe passed away due to a drunk driver crashing into her car as she was coming home from her mother's house. I was devastated of her passing and went into a deep depression and having to raise our 2-year-old daughter by myself. My friends tried to get me to go out again and start back dating, but every time I did, I felt like I was betraying her. Years later, when Eleanor was 13, I met Wendy. We met at a gathering for my sister's birthday, and we instantly hit it off. She didn't mind that I had a daughter because she had 2 kids herself and just went through a divorce. 2 years after, we got married. Now back to the present. Eleanor's 18th birthday is coming up, and I kept all the tapes for me to show her. Mind you, her mother died when she was just 2, so Eleanor doesn't remember her touch or her voice. I was excited to show her the tapes, and a week ago I was talking to Wendy about it, and I noticed her expression going from happy to looking a bit uncomfortable. Wendy would always get uncomfortable when I talk about my late wife. I don't say things like, "Why can't you be like Chloe?" or "Chloe was only supposed to be my first love." But I talk about her in a way to give my daughter a mental picture of how her mother was like. Wendy has always talked to me about Chloe and how it made her sad that she could never be like her. Chloe was a model, then started working on her fashion career, and don't get me wrong, she was a really beautiful woman, while Wendy had 2 kids in college and not in the best shape, due to her words. I love both women how they are, and I've never had a preference, but I feel like Wendy is gaining some jealousy towards Chloe. I told Wendy that I love her just the way she was, and she broke down crying. The next day after that incident, she came up to me and apologized for the way she acted last night. I told her it was okay, and it's good that she felt comfortable to share her feelings, and I gave her a tight hug and a kiss on her forehead. She asked to see where the tapes were at, and I showed her the box of videotapes of my late wife in my closet. Things were going fine until yesterday morning. I was looking for the tapes because I wanted to put them in a prettier box for my daughter, and when I went to go find them, the box wasn't in my closet. I looked everywhere to the point I walked downstairs to see my wife laying on the couch watching TV. I asked her about the box, and she told me she threw it away with a neutral expression. My heart dropped, and I asked her what did she mean, and she told me that I talked about her too much and that I needed to move on with my life, so she threw them away as a head start. I was fuming with anger because not only she threw away what I had left of her, she threw away my daughter's big surprise. We quickly got into an argument as she noticed how angry I was, so she started apologizing. It got to the point I started crying and locked myself in our bedroom. It's the morning, and I'm writing this in my office, going through my computer, finding old files or any type of video of my late wife to give it to my daughter because sometimes my daughter still cries that she never got to meet her mother, and I really thought it would bring her closer to her. I've been ignoring my wife for the past day, and she's been texting me nonstop about how sorry she is, but I really just can't look at her right now. It's getting to the point our mutual friends are texting me to accept her apology and get over it since Chloe died over 10 years ago, but I'm trying to ignore them all because they never had someone so close to them die. I'm working on finding these files, and I'm starting to think I was overreacting. I don't know what to do, and I really need help. OP, you are right. You are not the asshole, but your new wife is. I know, obviously you're married to her and you've been married to her for years, so I know that you trust her. But I can't imagine trusting her enough that when she just randomly asked about the videotapes, I would have told her where they were. I mean, I don't feel any sympathy for her, and I feel really bad for you that your friends are on her side. for you to get over it. It doesn't matter how long ago your first wife died. What matters right now is that you had one thing left, not only of her, but for your daughter from her. Like, these videos, like, they were always intended for your daughter, so they weren't even your property. They were your daughter's. And she stole from both of you. She took something away out of selfishness and a jealousy that doesn't even make sense, because she's jealous of someone who isn't here anymore. She's jealous of someone who could not possibly be a threat to her or to your relationship. It's really wild to me when someone is this jealous of a deceased spouse, because they can't do anything. They can't get in the middle of your relationship unless, in this case, like, she put her in the middle of the relationship. Yet you told her over and over again that you loved her for her. And that should have been enough. I hope you're able to find whatever files are left. I hate for you that you're having to go through this right now, especially so close to Eleanor's birthday. I mean, I don't know that I could forgive her for this. And there's no update on the post. This was, at the time of recording, this was just a day ago. So there's no update, but this makes my heart sad, because I hate thinking of, like, those last shred of something, of a person or a memory that you're holding on to, and someone thinks they have the right to take that away from you. Yeah, the very least you should be doing right now is ignoring her. Honestly, what you should be doing is, once you find all the files that you need, or all the files that you can gather, find a good divorce attorney and get rid of her, because she clearly doesn't trust you. She doesn't believe what you say when you say you love her, and she doesn't respect you. So I would put an end to that pretty quickly. OP, you are right, and I'm sorry that you're having to go through this. All right. That is 4 stories for episode 10 of Was I in the Wrong on the Misty Morrison podcast. I hope you enjoyed our stories. These were all fairly new posts, so please go leave a comment for our original posters on Reddit. I will be leaving comments for them too. And comment on socials with your opinion on the stories, or comment on YouTube if you're watching. And I will see you next time for another episode of the Misty Morrison podcast. Thanks for listening. Bye.